Good afternoon and welcome back to Bald Feather Bets, guys. We are going to give a quick recap of NFL Divisional Sunday, and then we will talk about the national championship game tonight between Indiana and Miami. First, please make sure you subscribe to the channel, notifications on, so you know when we post, and then just interact with the content, like the videos, comment on them, share them around. Anything you can do to help us grow. Never charge for the picks, just want to grow the channel. You guys are a big part of that this year. Really appreciate it. NFL Sunday win with the Patriots, loss with the Rams, not covering the 3.5. Patriots game. The Patriots game was weird because of how many turnovers you had. I actually was nervous that Houston was going to pull C.J. Stroud and put in Davis Mills. And I think if they do that, they probably win the game because he doesn't really take chances all that often. And he would have given them something a little bit with the legs on those third downs. C.J. Stroud was just as reckless as humanly possible out there. So both defenses played really well, which is what we expected. C.J. Stroud played even worse than I think anyone expected. That was just insane. I mean, the one where he's getting sacked and he just throws the ball up there, and Jones takes it back for interception touchdown for the Patriots. I mean, that pretty much cost him the game, and it's just just take the sack at that point. Like, somebody's on you, you're falling back, you have no ability to control that ball. He just made several decisions that were like that throughout the game. Also off on his accuracy. The play where Dalton Schultz got hurt, he got hurt due to an inaccurate pass from CJ. So really, that was the difference in that game. I didn't think the Patriots offense played all that well, but again, they were under pressure from that Houston Texans defense all game long. Sets up a very interesting matchup in Denver with the Broncos and Big Ol' Stiddies against Vrabel, May, and the Patriots. Patriots have never won in Denver for an AFC championship game. Weather, I'm curious, shouldn't necessarily be an impact for a team playing from New England. One of the things to always look at in Denver, though, is in the fourth quarter in OT, if it goes to that, does the team not from Denver start to get winded? If you've never done anything in high altitude, athletically, it is different if you're not used to it. So that is a big factor anytime Denver has a home playoff game. I think you saw it a little bit with the Bills. The Bills' defense was any defense would be gassed, but they seemed even more gassed at the end of that one. Then the Rams and Bears. Hat tip. We had that 1-1, and that 4th and 4 by Chicago, where Caleb Williams gets chased all the way back to his 40-yard line and throws a ball fading away off of his back foot with two defenders in his face with their hands up, is the most impressive play I've ever seen in the NFL. You've seen things like that a little bit more in college. I've never seen anything in the NFL that was that impressive. If a normal person, like one of us, were to try and recreate that play, and they had us run back, fade away off of our back foot with two NFL defenders with their hand up like this, trying to stop us, the ball would maybe go 8 to 10 yards. The fact that he had it go, because he was in the backside of the end zone, so he had to go about 48 yards and put it on a dime to Kmet. It's the most impressive play I've ever seen in the NFL. So, hat tip to them. Rams ultimately get the win. That sets up what we told you was going to be the NFC Championship game all year long. The two best teams in the NFL, Rams and Seahawks, line at either 2.5 or 3 on that one. Very interesting. When they played the first time in Los Angeles, line was Rams minus 2.5. When they played up in Seattle, line was Rams minus 1 or 1.5. And now for this third game up in Seattle, we have Seattle minus 2.5. I have an idea what way we're going to go on that one. but waiting a little bit to see if there's any more line. I have an idea what way we're going to go on both games, actually, for Broncos, Patriots, and for Rams, Seahawks, but we'll get at you whenever we actually lock those in. It could be earlier in the week for those ones than it was for divisional round. It's very strange the way this worked out. Like, wild card round, I pretty much knew what way we were going to go immediately. Divisional round, I didn't know up until kickoff. And then with this one, I knew immediately. Before they even made the lines, I had an idea of what the lines would be, and I knew what way we're probably going to be on. Okay, national championship game tonight. So this is a very intriguing matchup between two very different teams. I think the game is going to come down to three main things: two that the teams control and one that they don't. So the game is going to come down to how much of a liability is Indiana's offensive line, especially on the right side, against, I'm not even going to call it the pass rush, I'm just going to call it the defensive line of Miami, because it's also in run stopping, especially for RPO. So how much time does Indiana have to actually execute their RPO? The crazy thing about an RPO is if your offensive line is getting beat immediately from the jump, the RPO becomes a negative, because then you're actually taking more time that you don't have to make a read and make a decision. And as you're there, quarterback, running back, with the ball, handoff, and that quarterback's making the read, well, a defender's just crashing down on you, and he doesn't have to read what you're going to do because he's already gotten past the line, and he just has to go to the ball, and he can meet you at the point. You've seen it happen with RPOs in college multiple times where it's like both the players get tackled, and whoever has the ball, and oftentimes that can lead to a fumble. So how many times does that happen for Miami, and then it sets Indiana behind the chains? Because outside of that, one of the misconceptions about Miami this year is that their pass defense has gotten so much better. Their pass rush has led to a numbers increase in terms of their pass defense. Well, numbers decrease. It's gotten better statistically, but their actual secondary has only moderately improved. And you saw that against Ole Miss when, due to Chambliss and due to the fact that you had Big Ten refs who don't call holding, the secondary completely broke down, and Ole Miss was able to pretty much do whatever they wanted through the air, especially once they lost their corners. Because Miami's definitely not deep in the secondary. They brought in some mercenary hires for this year to try and shore it up. So if the pass rush and the defensive line is not able to be dominant against Indiana, the secondary will not hold up, especially against a passer as accurate as Mendoza. So then that's the first thing that this game comes down to. The second one then is when Miami has the ball, how dominant is their offensive line in downhill power schemes? And I'm not just saying downhill power running, I'm saying downhill power schemes altogether. So think about play action boots, think about read option with Carson Beck running, think about screen plays, and then think about downhill run game with Fletcher. So if they are able to stay on schedule with that and not get behind the chains, then all of a sudden the game shortens, which is what Miami would like in this one. And Miami, by the time you get to the fourth quarter, is probably able to lean on an undersized unit from IU, and a unit from IU, and I cannot stress this enough, that literally does not play any backups. So IU has 11 starters. IU plays like 13 guys on defense. So, like one of these theories that teams want like 9 defensive linemen that they're able to cycle in and out all game long. So that way, by the time the fourth quarter comes around, they're still fresh in terms of pass rush and defensive line. IU doesn't do that. They don't do it because they can't. They don't have the guys. So And it hasn't really cost them at all this year because they've only been in like 2 close games late. And the two games they were in close late was against Penn State and Iowa, and neither of those teams like have what I would call threatening offenses, right? So does Miami put this in a situation where they're able to lean on guys who have played the whole game and then are undersized compared to Miami's unit? If they're able to do that, then that's also going to open up windows for Carson Beck in the pass game that probably aren't there if the game goes the way of having to try and execute those pass plays early on. A couple of misconceptions about Beck is that if he has to throw the ball, he turns it over. If he gets into a game in which the offensive game plan of his team gets thrown off and he has to throw the ball early and often because they get down, he throws in interceptions. Carson Beck actually has quite a few impressive fourth quarters dating back to 2023 Georgia, including when they almost came back on Alabama in the SEC title game, and even 2024 Georgia, including when they almost came back on Alabama and Bryant Denny. He has a lot of arm talent, and he's more accurate than you would think. If he presses early outside of the confines of the offense, that's when he can get in trouble. But if you're in a fourth quarter game to where they've executed their game plan, and now they're in the fourth quarter running what is more of the pass set of the game plan, he doesn't really have a problem executing that. That's exactly what happened against Ole Miss when they went down and had the game winning touchdown drive. So in that sort of situation, against an IU defense that doesn't play a lot of backups, that's undersized, I 100% would trust Miami in that situation. And if it gets to that situation, I think Miami will win the game outright. Okay, now the third component of this. In this one, neither of the teams can control. They're just going to have to see how it's going early. How much does this Big 12 reffing crew let them play? So if they are calling a very tight game in coverage, that's going to favor Indiana. If they are calling a very tight game in terms of physicality, that's going to cover favor Indiana. Miami takes it to the limit is probably more than any team that I've seen this year in terms of playing physical through the whistle and a little bit after the whistle. They like to lean on guys a little bit after the whistle. How much does the Big 12 ref crew want to take control of the game early on and not allow that to happen? Because you get 2 or 3 of those where they call unnecessary roughness, unsportsmanlike conduct, whatever. Well, that's 30 yards or 45 yards that just went against you in penalties for the game. If they're not calling it, then that's extra plays where you're leaning on an Indiana team that's undersized compared to you. Miami's secondary can get handsy. If they are calling it tight in coverage, you're going to see pass interference on Miami. If they're not calling it tight in coverage and they're letting them play, that could frustrate an Indiana team significantly who, for most part of the year, has been able to get open when it comes to pass coverage. What are they doing with holding? If they are calling holding, that's going to favor Miami. If they are not calling holding, it's going to favor Indiana. I was talking about this with a friend. I've seen some analysis that essentially says, and I'll give it this, it's pro-Indiana analysis, like the people giving it are either Indiana fans or on Indiana or whatever, that says that the right side of Indiana's offensive line, while it is their biggest weakness, is not that bad. It's horrendous. The right side of Indiana's offensive line, if Indiana wins the national championship, will be the biggest liability on a national championship winning team since 2000, including the 2007 LSU quarterback room. Though you were talking about a freshman at right tackle who is undersized, who is not that athletic, and truly has not really developed his pass protection skill set yet. Going up against maybe the number one edge player that will be picked in the NFL draft this next year. He is going to hold. That's going to happen in this game. Do the refs call it? Because in the Big Ten ref crew that went up when Ole Miss played Miami, they weren't calling it. And Ole Miss is much more, they are significantly better at both left tackle and right tackle than Indiana is, and they still had to hold against Mesidor and against Payne Jr. So if they call it, that's going to be big for Miami because it's going to keep Indiana off schedule. If they don't call it, that might be what decides the game in this one. Line, and then how do we see it? Line is at either 7.5, 8, or 8.5. You had the sharp play was early on in Indiana, but it's sharp play ever since yesterday is heavy Miami. The sharper side in this one is Miami. Most betting models, my model, and most of the ones that I respect have this line right at 7. That IU should be favored by 7. So anything where sharps are going to get something over that, you're seeing them pounce on it pretty hard. I thought the early line movement with IU up was probably sharp rope-a-dope. So come in with a $50,000 play to move the line up, only to come over the top with like a $250,000 play. One of the things about college is the limits aren't as high as NFL at most books. So a lot of these 8.5s are actually offshore. I've only seen one book today. I've seen 2 books today who have been an 8.5, but one came back down to 8, and another one that was at 8 has gone up to 8.5. Because, like I said, the limits aren't as high in college as they are in the NFL. So a lot of these sharps play offshore if they're trying to come in with, $250,000, $500,000 bets on college games. We are going to take Miami plus the 8.5, and we're going to do that one for 3 units. It's too many points in a game in which line of scrimmage play favors one team over the other, especially when the line of scrimmage play is the identity of that team who has that edge. Don't necessarily know if that means they win it all. They win it outright. Wouldn't surprise me if they did. But I do think with Mendoza and his ability to execute, it's going to be hard to beat this Indiana team outright unless the Miami defensive line is so dominant that it just completely takes them off their game plan. But that can happen. You saw it 2018 Clemson. You've seen it in the NFL with like those New York Giants teams that won the Super Bowl. When you have 4 down linemen that can disrupt a game like that, it can win you a championship. All right, thank you guys. We'll be back at you again this next week for our plays for the AFC and NFC championship game. Cannot wait for those. We get some new blood. We don't have to watch the same teams that we keep watching every single year. Even though it's the Patriots, this is a different Patriots team. And enjoy the national championship game tonight, and hopefully you're enjoying your holiday.